You ever do anything with Brenda Lee?
Does she dance?
She spins. She's a little spinner.
Oh, and they were a good group.
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Sunday Helmet Hall of Fame in Fort Collins, Colorado.
And I am Dan Simon, podcasting from the Studio Simon headquarters at historic Bowman Field in Louisville, Kentucky.
Dan, good morning. Hello, how are you?
I am fantastic, Paul. How are you? What do you have going on with yourself?
Well, it's baseball, baseball, baseball. We're back. I'm so excited. And speaking of being back, the Lowell Spinners, after 6 years away, after suffering the fate of demolition at the hands of the Vogon destructor fleet that came through minor league baseball in 2020, the Lowell Spinners are back in a different form. They're back as a collegiate summer league team. At the time of this recording, we have not seen whether their mascot is going to be Canaligator or something based on their new spool of thread logo. So that information will have dropped by the time this episode drops. I'm excited to see. My prediction, Dan, and it's always funny to listen to prediction shows after the thing has actually happened. My prediction is they're going with both of them. That there's no way you don't bring Canaligator back, but I think that they'll have a new mascot. So that's my prediction. The Lowell Spinners, though, back after 6 years. That's exciting, and fans are excited to see it. You have some history with this team. You've done some work directly for this team. What work did you do for the Lowell Spinners way back when?
That work was done long ago. That work was done when I was working for the Dodgers. So it was done sometime between 1996 and 2001. And what it was you mentioned Canaligator, their mascot. They wanted a logo done of their mascot. That was done for use on I believe it was their batting practice cap. Wow, that was a long time ago. And then more recently, I have a client who was going to bring baseball back to Lowell in the form of a collegiate summer league team. I developed the entire identity. It was in the can, ready to go. And for reasons unbeknownst to me, and I think kind of unbeknownst to my client, that team never ended up happening. And instead, now we've got the second coming of the Lowell Spinners.
One of the reasons that I really love that you and I are friends and that I get to speak to you every week on this podcast is I get to hear the insider industry lingo that you use when you're talking about these projects. And you described this brand as being in the can, which to me, outside of these conversations, just means, using the bathroom. But in the can means that this brand was fully wrapped up, and I'm sure everyone can use context clues to determine what you meant by that. But in the can means you had a fully developed brand that did not get used. This happens a lot in this industry for reasons that are beyond your control. A completely fleshed out identity doesn't get used, and then you have to basically, live with that. This hard work that you did, you have to live with that. You put it aside. For me, when I think about that, it gives me anxiety. Is that tough to deal with when you create something that, you may be able to use for another client on another day, but might potentially never see the light of day?
I wouldn't say it's tough to deal with, but it is disappointing.
Yeah.
Because there's some really, really good work left on the cutting room floor.
I can absolutely see that disappointment because, when you work on something for weeks and weeks and months, and you have these client meetings, and I imagine you get attached to it on kind of an emotional level, right? Like it's not just, oh, you did work that went away, but you get attached to these characters and this work that you're doing.
I never really thought about it that way, but that's accurate. These things become like living, breathing things to me. And I do become attached to them. And it's a shame when they don't get to have their life.
Well, you showed me some of these brands that didn't see the light of day, and I get attached to them. I'm like, oh man, I want that on a shirt someday. So I'm like, I hope some other team, will go with this. It's an interesting conversation, and it's certainly an interesting line of work that you are in. Yet another look inside the design industry that I just absolutely love getting to have with these conversations. But for fans of baseball in Lowell, it was I'm sure an extremely emotional thing to have their team go away and then, to flip that emotion on its head to see that they're back, they'll be playing at the same ballpark, the team will have the same name. So anyway, this will be an interesting conversation. We have Mark DeShane from the team. He is part of the ownership group that brought this team back. We have Jim McLeod, who is the designer who worked on the 2008-2009 rebrand that the Lowell Spinners did. And who worked on one of the marks that was carried over into this new identity for this new version of the team. And then you're going to be back down with us, Studio Simon Stumper. Before then, though, as we have been doing on recent episodes, we have a couple letters to read, Dan. So we've got two. These came in on social media here. I have invited people to email me at my email address, pauljcaputo@gmail.com. But in the meantime, Dan, another way to send letters would also be through social media. Instagram, Threads, Blue Sky, Facebook, Baseball by Designs on all those. So the first letter comes in from friend of the show, Adam Hazel, who says, first off, outstanding episode on the Long Beach coast. So you can see, Dan, these letters, there might be a little bit of a gap between when these letters come in and when we actually get to read them on an episode. Bummed my Rocky Mountain vibes are not playing this year, keeping up hope for a future return, but happy that my Oakland Ballers have another California team to play for the future of our beloved Pioneer League. What other cities do you see as future homes for teams? Bonus question, is a fan allowed to have two favorite teams in one league? As always, love the podcast. So he's asking us questions here. I think in minor league baseball, especially independent professional baseball, you can have as many favorite teams as you like, right? Like I liked the Vibes. I liked the Owls with a Z. I think you can, in minor league baseball, have as many favorite teams as you like. I don't know where you stand on that, Dan.
I've got to agree with that because I have professional, but also personal relationships with these teams, with the people who work for these teams. And so I've got a lot of rooting interests. I have a lot of dogs in the fight, lots of favorite teams.
I think anyone who could see the hats, the number of hats behind me, might understand that I could never pick one favorite minor league team either. So future cities for, maybe Pioneer League teams, I don't have a great answer for that question. That's, it seems like that's all shifting west and coastal. As we've talked about before, we've lost 3 Colorado teams and now there's teams in California. So I don't know. I don't have an answer for that question. Adam, I'm sorry not to have more insight there, but Dan, is there a city in the United States that you feel like should have a minor league baseball team that does not?
Kennebunkport, Maine.
Absolutely. When are we going to get the Kennebunkport bushes?
Yeah.
All right. Our other message from Davis, who is a listener to the show. He signed off with his first name, Davis. Hey, Paul, love the show and have been listening for a few years now, even getting your book, The Story Behind the Nickname, to learn more about the world of minor league baseball. He capitalized minor league baseball, and then parenthetically, and minor league baseball, lowercase, if you're unaffiliated. That is how I distinguish them, and I appreciate Davis reinforcing that. Minor league baseball capital for affiliated teams, lowercase minor league baseball for unaffiliated, and the different stories behind each team's branding. I own quite a few hats, most of them minor league baseball branded, and much like you, I'm the guy who points out when I see another minor league team's logo, getting myself in trouble from time to time. The show has become a clean piece of audio into which you clearly put a lot of love and care. I'm a podcast producer, graphic designer, and journalist, and have really felt your work deserved praise. You create great stories and answer questions us listeners didn't even know we had. Great job. Give Dan Simon my love too. Thanks again, Davis. That is, Dan, it just warms my heart. Like, honestly, when people take the time to write just a letter just to be kind, just to say kind things, I find it very touching, and I really appreciate Davis taking the time to do that. So thank you, Davis.
Yes, and thank you for showing me a little love as well. But Paul, I have said this to you before personally, and I believe I've said it on the podcast. You're very good at what you do. you say very positive things about me and my work. And so, yeah, this whole thing, our friendship is a big love fest. We're lucky to have each other. I'm lucky to have you as a friend. I can't speak for you with regard to me. But not only do I like you personally, I very much admire you as a podcaster, but also I was listening to you on another podcast. And one of the things that really stood out to me was, well, two things. One is you have a story for everything. I think you once told me, speaking of having a story for everything, you once told me you were with one of your daughters in the car, and your daughter said, and tell me if I got this right, and correct me if I didn't. I forget what you were talking about it, but your daughter said to you, and in a nice way, Dad, you know everything. Is that what she said?
You're very close, and you have a very good memory. We were on my daughter Maya and I were on a college road trip. She's at American University now, so that was a successful trip. We were driving up and down I-95 on the East Coast, and I-95. There are a ton of towns in Maryland, in particular, where there are minor league teams. And so I was pointing out, every time we'd pass a sign, I'd be like, oh, well, Aberdeen, they have a team called this. And that's, the reason for that is this. And what she said was, I was saying something about Camden Yards in Baltimore because we could see it from the highway. And she said, Dad, you know a lot of things, which I took as a slight. I took it as like, Dad, stop being Cliff Clavin. And she insists to this day that it was meant as a compliment. So,
well, you do know a lot of things, but also there's a lot of people who might be able to say that as well. But you're also an excellent raconteur. Your ability to spin a yarn is, I got to tell you, from people I know, is pretty much unmatched.
Dan, I can't take this. I'm going to start deflecting in every possible direction. Thank you so much. And thank you for giving me an out by using the phrase spin a yarn
Look what I did
on an
there.
episode about the Lowell Spinners. Let's see what Studio Simon Stumpers have in store for us. We'll see you on the other side.
Okay, I'll see you then.
All right, everyone. I'm so pleased to welcome to Baseball by Design Mark Deschaines, who is the principal owner for the brand new Lowell Spinners. Mark, good morning. How you doing?
Yeah, it's great to be here. I'm doing great this morning. Not baseball weather, however, we're heating up the hot stove here, getting ready for Lowell Spinner action. So thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Well, it's great to be talking to someone from the Lowell Spinners. Obviously, the history of this team goes way back. I said the brand new Lowell Spinners because they have been revived after a 6-year absence. The former Lowell Spinners, what was it? The short season Class A Lowell Spinners went away with the reorganization, the Major League Baseball's reorganization of minor league baseball. You are now bringing them back. What is that story? Before we get into what the team name means, what went into bringing back the Lowell Spinners?
Yeah, so exciting time. So La Latcha Park has always been coveted, right, for some sort of activation outside of UMass Lowell. And, for years it was, talk about bringing back a single A affiliate of the Red Sox. Those kind of got, kiboshed throughout the time based on what the stadium needed for revival and so on. So this opportunity came about late last summer. I'd say that July timeframe where there was some talk about the city bringing the franchise in for a Futures Collegiate League team. That ended up happening, and throughout that process, we decided, myself and our other owner, John Croto, decided to put a bid in. We put a really good proposal together, and our corporate structure was something that was similar to the Worcester Red Sox. So we presented, and we were awarded the bid. So extremely happy about bringing that back. It all came together rather quickly. That's kind of how it came about, and we're excited to be over at that ballpark.
It was a big reaction online when it was announced that the Lowell Spinners were going to be playing again. And, it was sort of heartwarming to see. It was like a heartwarming story, right? Like this beloved team is coming back in this ballpark. Did you know when you were looking at bringing this team back that there would be such an emotional response to seeing the Spinners, revived?
It's a great question. We were hoping and we thought there was going to be a nice response in regards to bringing that back. Lowell's always been thirsty for some sort of baseball in the summer after UMass Lowell season was done. And, I had done some stuff there with my youth program, USA Prime New England, renting out the stadium for tournaments, et cetera, but not to the exposure that would bring fans into the seats, aside from families, right? So that fan base has been ever hungry for something to be back there. So, we were hoping for a good response, and holy cow, it's been overwhelming as far as the support and the response and just the interaction through social media that we've had to this point.
So I want to get into the brand a little bit here. That's what this podcast is about, is minor league baseball logos and nicknames. Just real basic. What's a spinner?
Yeah, so if you go back to the history of Lowell, all the mills in Lowell, there was a ton of textile back in that time with that industry. And I think that's how the spinner really came about back in the time. Doing the history with Tim Bowman, our COO now, who was with the Spinners when they first started, there were multiple names that were thrown out there. Spinners ended up winning. Mill Sox, interestingly enough, was the second name that was going to happen back in the day. So again, just that the heritage of Lowell and then the history of Lowell is where that spinner came about. But basically, a spinner is a textile type industry where you're bringing back that woven type atmosphere, etc.
So that original brand, or at least the previous brand, you brought back one of those logos, and then you introduced a new logo. The one that you brought back has a spool of yarn, which is obviously a reference to that textile industry that you're talking about. And it's a spool of yarn, and the yarn is sort of coming off it a little bit to form the letter S for spinners. So that was carried over from their previous brand. And then there's a totally new mark that also is a spool, but it's an anthropomorphic stool, a character. He's got a grimace on his face, and he's holding a sewing needle in his mouth there, and he's got these big muscular arms, and he's holding a baseball bat. It was an interesting decision to bring one mark over from the past and then introduce this new one as well. What went into that decision?
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to pay respect to the old spinners, if you will, and bring and keep some of that branding that was so popular back in the day, and just to resonate with our fans and understand that it was a big part of Lowell back in the day, as far 10 consecutive years of sellouts, right? So there was some sort of recognizability and recognition there that we wanted to have, but then kind of make it a little bit more modern as well. So we worked with some minor league baseball artists, in the area, and then also out in California, just coming up with different ideas, be creative to be on merchandise, and then just to spruce it up a little bit, if you will. And so we're hoping the modern version of that logo, like you're talking about, with the muscles and the needle coming out of his mouth, etc., is going to be popular. And so far with our merchandise and kind of what we've done for product at this point, it has been very popular.
I was going to ask you, are you selling merchandise already? Do you get a sense for, what has been, more well received by the fans?
Yeah, so at our press conference, which was at UMass Lowell, I believe November 11th, that's where everything kind of was unleashed, including the logos, the uniforms, the different script arts that we have, etc. That it was popular at that event, and then we've been selling it online as well in lieu of our new website, which will be released here in about another couple of weeks. So yes, the old logo has been very well received, and the new one as well.
I'm curious from a baseball standpoint, right? Like short season single A, you had some very young players who were essentially just drafted at that point. The Futures Collegiate Baseball League is also going to be very young players. So the level of baseball, the type of baseball that fans will be seeing, is probably not going to be appreciably different from what it was before. Are there differences, and obviously you were not involved with that previous team, so you can't comment on that, but what differences do you expect with a Futures Collegiate Baseball League level spinners versus what the fans were used to previously?
Yeah, that's where this becomes very interesting and sticky. So you hit it right on the head. So New York Penn League was, interestingly enough, anywhere from, say, high school players that were drafted out of high school, which were younger than some of the roster players that we have, all the way to seniors that were signed out of college. So whole wide range of players on that New York short season A of the Red Sox. We're typically getting high school seniors, freshmen, or sophomores for our roster build. So what's different is we're really going out there and energizing the community and familiar faces within the community that have been stars in the Merrimack Valley or local, to kind of create that community awareness, but then also to be able to bring these families to some recognizable faces on the field in our roster once we get going here. So that's been really cool so far in our social media releases of our roster signs, etc. But then that being said, Paul, then we have guys from, power fours, power fives all around the country. Kansas State guys, we've got Arizona guys, we've got Florida guys coming in, Virginia, etc. So we've got a really nice blend and mix that is going to provide a lot of excitement and also prospect power within our roster to be able to show the fans.
One of the things I remember when I saw a game there in Lowell, we got there, hours before the game. There was I guess it's the river that is going through town there. We set up right near the river and we were playing wiffle ball until one of the guys hit a foul ball that went into the river, and then the game was over because that was our only ball. But then in the ballpark, you could see like the old textile plants out beyond like the right field wall. The textile industry is like very much a part of the canal. That's what I was trying to, the word canal is what I was trying to come up with. So you had the canal there, you had the textile plants, a lot of them have been converted to, apartments or multi-use things, that sort of thing. But the textile industry is still very much a part of the visual identity of Lowell. And those buildings are very distinctive, especially because they're right there, like around the ballpark. And this is a long way of asking you, like, are there other plans for the identity right now? You've got like the two logos. Are there other, elements that you might incorporate into sort of future logos, or are you set for a while with the two that you brought in?
Great question. So we are ever so excited about new engagement with logos and themes and word marks that will be coming out. So there'll be a lot of excitement here in the next couple months as far as social media releases on new and exciting things, and then also different ideas, creative ideas that we're working with our artists with to have more alternate type logos. And one of those will be paying homage to the textile industry, the mills in the back that you see from right field overlooking Aiken Ave. So all of that is the answer is yes. A lot of exciting times and a lot of stuff that we're eager to see what our fan reaction will be, and just a lot of different things that will bring back a lot of the history of Lowell as well.
And I'm sure you're getting this question a lot. I mentioned the canal. You can't mention the canal without mentioning Canaligator. You're already nodding. Canaligator is coming back?
That I cannot give a yes or no to at this point.
All right.
So, there has been a lot of social media asks as far as the Canaligator. So we don't know where the Canaligator is at this point.
Oh,
Yeah, so I can't answer that right now. I guess it's a look and see. Potentially in the on deck circle. I don't know.
this is set up for drama right here. It's a real caper. It's a Where is Canaligator? That would be a great title for the episode of this podcast. Where is Canaligator? So we'll see. You mentioned, Mark, the uniforms are going to be unveiled. What are the concepts behind the uniforms? What are you guys going to be putting out there on the actual ball field?
Yeah, so we'll have three uniforms. We'll have a classic home, which is white, and again, going back to the Spinners days, we wanted to make it recognizable to those days that were so successful. So classic white with your reds and your blues, and then we'll also have an alternate uniform, which could be worn home or away. That'll be powder blue. So really, really cool look right there, and the players, at least right now, love that. And then your road will be your grays that you guys see often. But three different uniforms right now, three different hats with different logos on them. So, just trying to really be diverse in regards to what we're showing our fans. And then, we've got script logo on them. And then we also have some block lettering. And then, we've got some logo on there as well.
I'm looking at the picture from the November unveiling, and yeah, you've got the red with the Lowell across the front, and then the white with the red sleeve says Spinners. But these powder blues that you're talking about, the powder blues have really come back in a big way. You called it Cardinals blue. I would have said more Phillies blue, but there's a lot of teams out there trying to claim that powder blue. But yeah, that Mill City is great on that uniform there, and I could see there being a Mill City alternate logo at some point too. One other thing about the sort of branding here, obviously it's not an affiliated team, but back in the day it was a Red Sox affiliate. There's still very much a sort of Red Soxy feeling about it. I don't think the Red Sox ever had that power blue, but the Reds and the type have sort of a Red Sox feeling about them. Obviously that's intentional, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we wanted to stay true to the old Spinner, color palette, or close enough, right? And then, kind of expand a little bit, and then be a close second to UMass Lowell as well. So when you're in the stadium, you're kind of co-branding that with UMass Lowell. So there's a good feel there, not a lot of disconnect, et cetera. So, that was part of it. And then again, just getting fans to resonate and be familiar with what was so popular back in the day was an important piece for us on the decision-making process with logos, uniforms, color scheme throughout the ballpark.
Well, this is really exciting. I'm glad to have the Spinners back. I was sad to see them go back in 2020, so I'm very glad that they're back and appreciate the work that you all did to bring them back. Where can people go to check out the new website and grab some new Spinners merch?
Yeah, so lowellspinners.com is our website. We ended up finding the old domain and resurrecting that. So very familiar there as well, lowellspinners.com. And then we also have a year-round pro shop back where the old Spinners pro shop was on Aiken Ave. So you're free to walk in there. We have store hours there. We can come in and walk away with your merchandise. And then what we're doing is some really good things around the ballpark too. So on the concourse, we'll be activating all of that for concessions, merchandise, and then just bringing a really cool fan experience back. But again, the big thing is these logos nowadays. I love the minor league baseball logo. I have a son who's 12 years old that's into baseball, and he's probably got a good 3 dozen hats with different minor league baseball logos on them. So ever so popular. So hoping to create some excitement there.
Well, your 12-year-old son and I have that in common right now. You can see the hats on the wall behind me here. So it's an affinity that I for sure share. It's such a great microcosm of American culture, and it's so much fun to talk about. So, hey, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with me about the new Lowell Spinners, and I'm looking forward to catching a game up there again.
Yeah, excited to see you at the ballpark, and a very, very cool conversation here. So thanks for engaging.
Thank you, Mark. All right, everyone, welcome to the podcast, Jim McLeod, who is the designer who created the new Lowell Spinners brand, this new iteration of the Lowell Spinners. Jim, how are you?
Doing great. Yourself?
I'm doing so well, so happy. First of all, I'm happy that the Lowell Spinners are back. I've mentioned already on this episode that we saw a Lowell Spinners game as part of a Baseball Palooza road trip on a piping hot Sunday afternoon in August. We were not sitting in the shade. We learned from that mistake. But beautiful ballpark, great baseball experience, and I think it's great for minor league baseball to have the Lowell Spinners in their new form back. It is something that I think the whole minor league baseball community has noticed. And so I would imagine for you that there was something of a weight on your shoulders to bring this classic team back with a new brand that was worthy of this team. Was that something that you felt on your shoulders, or did you just approach it like any other project?
So I had worked on the Lowell Spinners rebrand back in 2008.
Okay.
And I was working for an agency at the time. And I kind of did a lot of the design work for them under creative director Linda Kirkland.
Okay.
And we did the spinning S around the Bindle icon that was used on all the hats. And then we also did the jersey script, and we did a whole bunch of work for them at that point. Obviously, like time went on, I switched jobs, moved around a bit. But then all of a sudden I got an email one day from the former president of the agency, Rick Alpern, who said, "Hey, the Spinners are back. They're looking to reconnect because they want to go back and do something similar to that 2008, 2009 logo." So that's how I got kind of reacquainted with them. They're already working on some branding already. So they've got kind of a mascot type logo that was already in place, but they wanted to update that S logo that they were using on their hat and other memorabilia. So that's how I got involved and was able to update it.
So the two projects you did for the Spinners spanned about 18 years. How did you approach the changes that have happened in the last 18 years for minor league baseball branding? How did that affect the process going into this new iteration?
Yeah, I definitely looked at the landscape. Just any design logo project, you're going to look at what else is around there, what's the competition doing. And it was interesting because I already had the foundation, right? Because I'd already done all that research 18 years ago. So I kind of knew what was working then, and then to kind of bring it forward. Okay, so what's going to work in 2026 and beyond? And also I'm a better designer, right? It's been 18 years. So, even looking at the original logo, which I loved, next to the new one that I made, I'm like, oh, the balance is better, the colors are better. Just there's a whole bunch of that little those little things that a designer learns as time goes on. And looking at, now I don't necessarily like the old logo as much because I see all the flaws and I can see how it could be better. So I was able to look at it not only from the industry lens, but then also from just design improvement of my skills.
A spool of thread is not necessarily the most menacing thing that you can turn into an iconic mark, but there's sort of a lot to work with there. This S has a really swoopy feeling about it, and it feels like a baseball logo. And obviously, the spool is spooled around a baseball bat, which is thematically appropriate, of course. So where where do you start with a project like this where you are where you're trying to take something that doesn't really have a lot of sportsy feelings to it and make it feel sportsy? These are my official design terms, sportsy.
Yeah, you want action and energy in there. And it's different than a major league logo, which is timeless and simple and more often than not represents the city as
Yeah.
much as the town itself. So when I was a designer for 47 brand, I learned, the Phillies P or the Yankees NY or the Boston B, those represent the team, but then larger than that, it's the city. But when it comes to minor league teams, often you're going after families. And so it's a completely different idea and different vibe that you're going for with that. And because there are a lot of young kids, like I take my kids to games and looking forward to taking them to the Spinners in this upcoming season. But there's just a different audience. So you want something that's fun and playful and simple and, but still has that sense of action and motion within it on a flat. So, and it's tricky when it comes to these logos because they're not only flat, but they're also slightly raised,
Mhm.
on the baseball cap. So you need to figure out, okay, what part's going to be raised, what part's going to be flat on the cap in order to get that fake sense of three-dimensionality that does exist in some ways, but doesn't exist in others.
Well, you mentioned that you worked for 47. You mentioned this before we got on the podcast, and my eyes lit up. I am wearing a 47 brand St. Patrick's Day Phillies cap right now. So, obviously that work in 47 brand must be, really pretty interesting working with existing brands and then translating them onto all sorts of different platforms. And you mentioned, the embroidery, and I'm sure you're working with screen printing and that sort of thing. When you work with these existing brands and you see which are the ones that are sort of time tested and classic, understanding how the major league sports are different from the minor league sports, how does that inform your process as a designer, not just on a minor league baseball project, not just on a major league project, but what you're doing throughout, all of your design projects, whether they're sports related or not?
I always start with the audience first
Mm.
and knowing what they're looking for, what their motivations are, and then figure out what's going to attract them, what's going to catch their eye, and then try to find the best way to do that. One of the things that I really try to highlight, and when I was designing baseball caps, and then when I design logos now, is what is the level of contrast? And it's easier with the major league logos because a lot of them are just one color logos, or
Mhm.
sometimes one color plus a stroke around it.
Yeah.
Minor league logos tend to have a lot more colors and a lot more intricacy in it. So it's not as simple to have a white pea on a green hat for St. Patrick's Day,
Mhm.
right? So for the Spinners or any of these other minor league teams, because their logos are more intricate, you can't necessarily do one color on a darker background or a dark color on a lighter background because you need that level of detail in there. So that often lends itself to creating additional strokes and
Mhm.
outlines, which is actually one of the things that we did with the new Spinners logo compared to the one that I designed back in 08, 09, which was the white outline follows the S all the way through. Whereas on the previous one, the white outline was just sitting behind the logo. And now we're using it to wrap all the way around the S. So it does kind of create that dimensionality between the S and the spindle with that white outline.
Well, I have the 2008 version in front of me, and I have the 2025, 26 version in front of me as well, and I see absolutely what you're talking about. With that 2008 rebrand, there were a couple of other ones. There was like a ball of yarn around a baseball bat. there was a character. There was the baseball bat spindle with the yarn spun around with, eyes in the mouth, and he's all sort of wide-eyed there. And then it was this one that was the letter S that was updated for the new brand here. Yeah, and absolutely the white outline in front of the spool there makes a big difference. Isn't that interesting? The little
Yeah.
details, that's what it's all about, right? Like, did you still have those files on your computer? Were they what format were they? Were they Adobe Illustrator?
They were Illustrator. I didn't have the full file set.
Okay.
And eventually I tracked down the drive that had it, but then realized I threw out the plug for that drive. So I couldn't actually get access to it in the time that I needed. So the one file that I did have, I was able to kind of get and recreate a lot of what I needed from it. But yeah, the whole gamut of all those different files, yeah, it's locked
Yeah.
away in a drive that I can't turn on right now.
So I have one more question for you here, which is that there's this spool of thread logo that you created, and there's another sort of anthropomorphic spool of thread that looks pretty different that you did not work on. So far, it's just those two marks that I have seen basically for this team. And one of the things that I'm sure you've discovered in minor league baseball, one of the changes that has happened over the years, is that teams have many, many alternate, not just alternate brands and alternate identities, but alternate marks within a suite of
Mm.
within one identity. Is there a plan? Do you know whether there's a plan to expand this new brand into more areas and have some more marks?
I believe so. I've
Yeah,
just started recently talking with the leadership group
yeah.
about, okay, what are we going to do with merchandise? What's kind of the next step with these things? I think at the time, a lot of it was just let's get the primary logos we need so we can do the big announcement, get people excited, start selling
Mhm.
tickets again. Because, like you said, the Spinners were beloved in the area and they've got this amazing history, right? Like I've got a Mookie Betts bobblehead with him wearing my logos and jerseys and all that. And the guy's going to go into the Hall of Fame in the future, right? So there's a whole history to this little team in Lowell, Massachusetts. So I think it was let's just kind of get that news out there, get people excited about it, and then keep building on that.
I said it was my last question. I always lie. That's always a lie. Listeners of this podcast know not to believe me when I say that, but you are a Red Sox fan. We
I
were
am.
we were comparing notes on plastic cups that we were drinking from before we started recording here. So you're a Red Sox fan. This team was a Red Sox affiliate, and now obviously it is not affiliated because of the level and the league that it plays in. But it still has a sort of Soxy feeling about it. Part of that is the brand equity for the actual team. Is part of that also because of the area where the team plays and baseball equals Red Sox in Lowell, Massachusetts?
It's tricky because one of the things we had to do was not have it completely aligned with the Red Sox, right? So we had to change the colors. The red and the
Mm.
navy are a little different than they were before.
Oh,
And there's some affiliation with UMass Amherst, which is also red and blue, but different, obviously different colors, different
yeah.
shades and hints of those colors. But it was, yeah, red and blue is the Spinners. If all of a sudden it came out as blue and yellow or something, or green and yellow or something, just people would kind of get confused by that. So I think it was okay. It's all about the nostalgia of the Lowell Spinners. So we tried to keep it as close as possible, but update it, but also keep it away from the Red Sox. So it was a very fine line we were all trying to walk with this.
Yeah, it's a funny thing to have to do because there are other teams in Boston that are not affiliated with the Red Sox that feel sort of Boston-y, right? Like, and it's
Mhm.
just, it's I think that happens in Boston as much as anywhere. And then who knows? Maybe they'll come out with like a green and purple identity and call it a City Connect, right? Like it had
It
nothing to
could,
do with
yeah.
anything. Well, Jim, this is so much fun, and I'm so glad that we found each other online. It was sort of a weird happenstance that we found each other on Threads. Ironically, we found each other on Threads to talk about this logo. So
I never
I
put that together,
didn't
but
think of
yeah.
that till just now. Um, I'm certainly glad that we did, and I appreciate you taking time out of your day to chat with me. Where can people find the work that you do as a designer and online?
Yep. Most of my work's at jimmccloud.com, and I'm most active on LinkedIn and Threads when it comes to social. And I've got a day job where I'm a creative director at a tech company too. But to see the full range of what I've done is jimmccloud.com.
JimMcLeod.com. There's an A in McLeod, and we'll put that in the show notes, of course. Jim, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Deep within the recesses of his secret headquarters, somewhere in Louisville, Kentucky, sits Dan Simon. By day, Dan is the owner of Studio Simon, but by night, he tries to stump one Paul Caputo. This is Studio Simon Stumper.
All right, everyone, welcome back. It is time for Studio Simon Stumpers with my very good friend, Dan Simon of the prolific design firm Studio Simon. Dan brings us a trivia question every single week. Dan, I am excited to see what we have to talk about today. There's just so much. I have focused most of my pre-Stumper research on baseball teams related to the textile industry. And so if the answer is not Burlington sock puppets, I'm definitely going to get it wrong.
Paul, you will do this occasionally where you talk about what the Stumper theme might be. And frankly, whenever you say something specific, you've always been wrong. I don't think you've ever guessed it. But you know what? This time you have.
Did I get it? The textile industry. All right, let's do it.
Well, anyway, but we're going to have a little bit of a preamble to the question.
Okay.
So you mentioned in the intro, you brought up Canaligator. Now, as far as I know, it's not the Canaligator. The name of the mascot was Canaligator.
Okay.
It didn't have a name like Huey or something like that. So yes, they had a mascot named Canaligator. And that mascot was introduced in 1996. 3 years later, in 1999, a female mascot was introduced. Her name was Allie Gator. And interestingly, I don't know why they did it this way. Instead of first name Allie, last name Gator, it's Allie-Gator.
Oh,
or
no.
If you're in Winston-Salem, it would be Allie-Gator. So.
That's a very good joke, Dan. Is this another formation that we have to add to our list of, camel case, 2 words, compound word, 1 capital letter, and now hyphenated? I don't know how many hyphenated names are out there outside of Winston-Salem.
I don't think there's isn't Wilkes?
Wilkes-Barre. Yeah.
Wilkes-Barre is hyphenated.
Yeah.
So
Scranton hyphen Wilkes-Barre.
Scranton / Wilkes hyphen Berry.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, there's a slash in there.
Oh, no. They have all sorts of punctuation in that name.
Yes.
I thought it was just Scranton - Wilkes-Barre, but that's going to be a research project and a discussion for, we may have to follow up on that. Scranton / Wilkes hyphen Barry. That's just so much punctuation. My goodness.
Yeah, they doubled up on Winston-Salem. So Alligator was introduced 3 years after Canaligator mascot. And then, so that was 1999. And then on May 6th, 2006, the two were married. So,
really?
Yes.
They made honest alligators of each other.
Okay. Well, let's talk about honest alligators. On opening day of that season, a third of the 2006 season, a third mascot, their daughter, was introduced.
Oh my.
Okay. So now short season opening days were usually around June 20th.
Okay.
So from the wedding to the introduction of their offspring was 45 days, give or take. But the gestation period for alligators is 60 to 70 days. So that means they had to get married.
Oh, scandal.
Yes, exactly. I actually have this in my notes. The last thing I wanted to mention is this scandalous daughter's name was Millie Gator, Millie-Gator.
Okay.
And that brings us to Mills.
Millie Gator. Okay, here we go.
And our Studio Simon Stumper today asks, which of these baseball cities was the quote unquote underwear capital of the world?
Okay.
Because of their mill.
Okay.
Mill or mills.
Okay.
Was it Kannapolis, North Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, or Burlington, North Carolina?
Oof. All right. So Kannapolis was going to be my first guess. If you had not given me a list of teams, I was going to guess Kannapolis just because that's a city that I associate with having a big textile plant. Obviously, Burlington, North Carolina is another one. And I mentioned the Burlington sock puppets as we got into this. I don't know anything about Knoxville and having a textile plant. This is a little bit like, when on these sports shows, when they say, at the beginning of the season, I picked the Red Sox to win the World Series, and now the Red Sox are in the playoffs, so I'm going to pick them to win the World Series against all other evidence. I think Kannapolis would be a really good guess. They were Cannonapolis because of Cannon Mills. Burlington is famous for its textile industry. The look on your face when I said the answer might be Burlington sock puppets because we're talking about the textile industry, your eyebrows went up, your eyes went all dinner plates, as if I had guessed the answer to the question before you had even asked the question. I really want that to be the case. I'm going to go Burlington, North Carolina for the Burlington sock puppets.
Alas, the streak ends.
The streak is over. It's Kannapolis, isn't it?
0 for 2.
Oh, I'm back to my old ways. I'm back to now. I've got 2 wrong on one question.
Okay, so
Knoxville. I had no idea that Knoxville had a textile history.
I'm a little surprised that you went with Burlington because they're the sock puppets. They're known for socks.
I know.
Socks, I guess, technically is an undergarment, but it's not underwear.
Well, I was thinking that they just have a notable textile heritage and therefore might have been known for underwear. But also, I really wanted Burlington to be the answer because I never have guessed the answer. It would be a little bit like getting Wordle on your first guess, right? Like the chances of guessing the answer to a question before you hear the question, I had to go with it.
Well, Burlington, like I said, they're known for socks. They were known as the city was known as the hosiery center of the South. And Burlington Mills made Burlington socks. They're now called Burlington Industries and are now headquartered in Greensboro, but the name Burlington came from that company's originally being in Burlington. Kannapolis were known for textiles, mainly towels and bed sheets. In fact, one of the nicknames of Kannapolis is Towel City. And there's even, I believe this is owned by the owners of the Kannapolis Cannonballers. There is a Towel City Tavern there. It's craft beer and pub food.
How long till we see that as an alternate identity?
Kannapolis there were mill baseball teams that played throughout the South and the North as well, I believe. There were a lot of mills in the South because of all the cotton down there. But the name of the mill team in Kannapolis was the Towelers. And I didn't design an identity for them using that name, but I think they might have used that. I'm not really sure. But anyway, the correct answer is Knoxville. At one time, you mentioned you didn't associate Knoxville with mills, and frankly, neither did I, except I was doing a project for them a few years ago, and I had to research that. And at one time, Knoxville had 13 mills. It was a major mill city. Perhaps the most notable mill there was the Standard Knitting Mill, at one time the single biggest employer in Knoxville, and they laid claim to being the biggest textile manufacturing plant in the United States. And what they made were undergarments and were called the underwear capital of the world.
Underwear capital of the world has to make its way into an alternate identity. And that's a team that you've done some work with, Dan. How do we make this happen? I need an anthropomorphic pair of boxers swinging a baseball bat.
Well, I can't tell you the name because this might get used, but I proposed to that team an underwear themed alternate identity. They loved it, but felt it wasn't quite right for them. And I was working with another team who also has a connection to underwear. And I suggested the same name to them for an alternate identity. They like the idea, and it may happen.
Oh, this is very exciting. Dan, thank you once again. I'm sad the streak is over, but all good things come to an end. Much like this episode, it has been fun. Thank you, as always, for putting the work that you put into Studio Simon Stumpers and for making these episodes so much fun. And we'll see you next week.
It's been my pleasure, and I am looking forward to next week. I will see you then.